Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this sixth day of February 2023. Okay, Kyrie Irving is now with the Dallas Mavericks. Possibly Kevin Durant could be traded. According to Stephen A. Smith, going to talk about that. Speaking of the NBA, no questions about the Chinese balloon from the NBA media. I'll get into that. Also, Brian Flores. Now, he's the defensive coordinator hired for Minnesota Vikings. Dallas Cowboys have a new offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer. Plus, I have some huge announcements to make about a special guest tomorrow on tomorrow's program. Really looking forward to that. I'll get all to that. All to that information here in just a few minutes here on Sports Scope. A lot of big things going on. Going to be back in a minute 19. Get my first break out of the way. We'll hit the show, hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. After 5 years of doing this program once a week, balancing a 60-hour work week job, I've decided to do the program 5 days a week, 1 hour a night, taking a significant pay cut. So I've started a Patreon page, which is Patreon, Patreon/SportsScope, spelled the same way at the bottom of the screen you see there. For $5 a month, 17 cents a day, you can help support the program. You ask yourself, why SportsScope? Well, I bring in such big names such as Al Borges, former Auburn offensive coordinator, and I cover the big news in sports that the corporate media will not cover. If you want to contribute more than $5 a month, you can go use the Cash App. The cash tag is SportsScope, again, spelled the same way. Or you can go to the Zelle app, sportscope@gmail.com. SportsScope has about 5,000 followers and growing. If you want to advertise on the program, you can email me. The word is SportsScope, spelled the same way again, @gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the program. Okay, now I'm back here live on all links, everybody. I want to make an announcement before I get started today. Tomorrow, you do not want to miss tomorrow's program, okay? Again, you do not want to miss tomorrow's program, Pickles. I have a special guest here coming in tomorrow for the whole hour, all right? You guys know I don't like to keep people for the whole hour. Jeffrey Deskovic will be in tomorrow as a special guest. Mr. Deskovic was wrongfully accused of a rape and a murder of a woman in 1989, and later DNA evidence got him totally exonerated. There was a lawsuit involved. He spent 16 years in prison. You said, well, what does this have to do with sports? Well, yeah, he tells me, and I had to do some background, make sure he was who he said he is, which he is, that basically he said sports talk really got him through his time. And this guy was convicted of a horrible crime that he did not do. He's going to explain that tomorrow on the program. He's going to explain that tomorrow on the program in detail. There's been documentaries made about Jeffrey on Amazon. He's been on, there's Wikipedia pages made about him, several other podcasts that he's been on. And, we're going to talk Sports Illustrated op-ed he's wrote. He works with a nonprofit. It's a lot to get into tomorrow. Going to be a really good program tomorrow, Pickles. Well, I hope so. I think I'll click with him, but we'll see. He reached out to me through Facebook yesterday, and I was honored that he did. Like I said, after doing some research and making sure Jeffrey was who he says he is, which he is, and I look forward to that tomorrow at the same time, same place, here on SportsScope. Okay? All righty then. So Kyrie goes to Kyrie goes to Dallas. I mean, that sounds like an episode or something, doesn't it, Pickles? That sounds like a movie. Kyrie goes to Dallas. Now, I'll say this. Let me read off what was given here for. Okay, now he was traded to Dallas for a. Let me make sure I got this right. Okay, Kyrie Irving was sent to Dallas Mavericks for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith of the Nets, 2029 first-round pick, and 2 second-round picks in 2027 and 2029 to the Brooklyn Nets. Marquise Morris also heads to the Mavericks with the trade that will be complete tonight, according to the Athletic Shams Charania. All right. And I also want to Fox Bet has the Dallas Mavericks championship odds go from plus 2,000 to plus 1,200. The new lineup for the Dallas Mavericks would be Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, Tim Hardaway, Dwight Powell, Christian Wood. That actually looks pretty good. That actually looks pretty good, you know. But I'm reading like multiple sourced, what do you want to call it, random comments to this site here. And you hear random comments that are they don't have a name, but they're from management. And one team says, I can see him paying max number. The other team says he's just a rental. You know, he's just a rental. And also reported that Joe Tsai, the owner, did not. And I said this on Friday. I said, I bet LeBron's got something to do with this, Pickles. And they would be perfect for each other. So I think the suspicion by the owner of the Nets also said that he shot down anything that went to the Lakers. Totally shot that down is what was reported today. And another thing, as I mentioned, invented on Friday's program with Carlos Mad New Yorker Chavez, the two New York papers, one is leaning more liberal, one is leaning more conservative in the New York Daily News, more to the left politically, the New York Post, more to the right politically, but they can agree on one thing, guys. They can agree on one thing. The New York Post on the back page of Saturday's paper says, to-do list. Kyrie Irving pockets more than $100 million. He missed 134 games, refused the COVID vaccine, promotes anti-Semitic movie, one playoff series win, and demands a trade. And the big headline from the New York Post says, your work is done here. Time for the Nets to end the Kyrie charade. That was from the New York Post. Now listen to what the New York Daily headline was, Nets deal Kyrie to the Mavs for, oh, who cares? He's finally gone. He's your headache now. That's what the Daily News says. So, Carlos, so the two big papers there in the city, and I don't know what the Times said about it, but they both had very interesting see you later, Kyrie. They can agree on something. Can the frustration of Kyrie Irving bring a city together again? You know, that's pretty interesting. I love that. Now, I'll say this. And plus the Nets supposedly aren't done. I've been reading up on this. There's a possibility that Dinwiddie can go to Toronto for Fred VanVleet. And there's a possibility, I know Corey watches, my friend Corey watches the program, big Boston Celtic fan. What I brought up earlier this summer was that possibly they could deal Kevin Durant to Boston for Jaylen Brown, which basically will solidify the championship for Boston. I think they'll probably win it anyways with a much younger 25-plus-year-old Jaylen Brown versus a 34-year-old coming off injury, but much more talented Kevin Durant. That is and Carlos, you said you didn't think that Carlos says, I'm not surprised. I was just listening to our program on Friday, and Carlos says there's no way he goes to Dallas. And I said, I'm just naming off the teams that I'm reading that are interested. Mark Cuban, I've said on this program before, guys, they cannot lure free agents to Dallas. And Luka is a mega talent. He is a mega talent. Pickles says Doncic and Kyrie will sell tickets. And that is true. And according to the lineup that I'm reading, guys, Doncic will be the point guard. Kyrie is used to, now he played point at now remember he ran the point at Cleveland, but he played shooting guard with James Harden for a little while. They played well together at times. And then, of course, he a lot of times with LeBron, he played off the ball. Now, Ben Simmons carried the ball up. This team was a 4 seed. I thought it was a little premature, but the guy's a headache. Like I said, I take nothing back I said about Kyrie on Friday. But, again, you look at this lineup, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, Tim Hardaway, Dwight Powell, Christian Wood, that would be interesting. And I'll say this. Not to pat my own back, but I told you all, everybody's hyping up the Lakers and Golden State. Well, now Steph Curry's got an injury. He's going to be out weeks with an S. He's torn something in his knee. Nothing. They're going to get another MRI done in a few days. We know he's going to be out weeks with an S. They're already a 7th seed. They're probably done. Unless they make a big trade or something. I don't think they will, but you never know, right? You simply never know about that. But so you look at this lineup here. You look at the fact that they beat Denver twice already. Now, I'm just giving you the facts here, folks. I don't know how far they'll go, but Dallas has been sneaky good in the playoffs the last 2 years. They have been sneaky good. Now, I do think that if Kawhi Leonard's healthy, that's a big if. I don't think they'll get through L.A., but remember, they pushed the Clippers 2 years ago to 7 games, and the Clippers were holding on for dear life, And if you guys want to really go back or simply go back to last year, go back to last year when they beat Utah in the first round. Then they turn around and beat the number 1 seed, that Phoenix team, in 7 games. Now they were out of gas and they lost to 5 to Golden State, the eventual Western Conference champions, and eventually went on to win the championship. But mind you, that means they were in the Western Conference Finals last year with Luka Doncic. Now they got a guy that can score more. They've never really been a great defensive team. They're good defensively at times under Rick Carlisle. Now they've got Jason Kidd for two years, but they're going to be able to score. They're going to be able to score more. They're going to be a sneaky good team. Now, this year, like I said, going back to they beat Denver. Now, they are the 1 seed, but they beat them twice already, Now, that may not mean nothing. That simply may not mean anything, folks, in the playoffs. But they're going to be a team that is going to creep up on people, perhaps, The Clippers will probably knock them out. The Clippers have beat them twice this year, but they're going to be interesting to watch. Now, as far as signing the guy, there's no way I'd sign him to extension. I don't know what, but the fact is they've already gave up draft picks. They'll have cap room in the offseason. That, of course, if they don't sign him, they'll have that much more room to do something with. I don't know what they're thinking. Maybe they're not done, But, again, it's hard for that team to lure, hard for this team to allure free agents, and this is the risk that they're taking. I mean, this is part of the big moves that they wanted to make. I'm sure they would much rather go after a more reliable player than a Kyrie, rather than just looking at his talent, look at a guy that's more reliable and almost as talented as Kyrie. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays. He's going to play off the ball. He doesn't want to play point. Like I said, probably do about what they did last year. Probably win a playoff series. Probably go good. There's a chance they can go to the Western Conference Finals, pending on the matchup. If Denver's healthy, Denver will probably get them. And if the Clippers are healthy, I know the Clippers will get them, but they're going to wreak havoc either way, because there's nothing teams can do with. There's simply nothing teams can do with Luka in the playoffs. So this guy's going to get some good looks, man, because Luka's so freaking dominant, and you can't do nothing with him. You try to double him. He just brings it up to another level. And the last few years in the playoffs, Luka Doncic's done it. Man, he's 35, 40-something points a game, and he's an excellent passer. So, it's a big story to keep up with. There's still potential trades. We're a few days away from the trade deadline. By the way, Wednesday I'm going to get Keith Engel, his opinion on Kyrie. I'm going to ask Keith Engel from TGI Sports also what his opinion on Tom Brady retiring. I'll get his opinion, and I'm going to try to get – I haven't got a chance to get a hold of Jamie, Philly sports guy, ask him about the Eagles, and perhaps on Thursday – maybe the 76ers, maybe they get involved in a trade there to try to up their playoff chances as well, since teams are making moves in and around the league. Okay. Okay. So there was another big story here. There was a balloon. There was a balloon that's went all over the country. It's from China, and the reason why I bring the China spy balloon story up is the NBA just now last year that China has allowed the NBA to show their games in China. I want to say their revenue is like 15% of China. And you say, well, why? What was that? They were suspended. The NBA's games were suspended. China did not want to show their games in NBA games in China, all because Daryl Morey made a comment in a tweet about free Hong Kong when China was taking back Hong Kong, when Hong Kong was not supposed to be taken back for 50 years. They're supposed to have 50 years of independence. Let's go back to 2019. And essentially, he put free Hong Kong because people did not want to be ruled by China. They want to be an independent colony or whatever. They had this deal in 97. It was only 25 years. I'm going to play you what really set China off by Adam Silver, even though he tried to tippy-toe around it. This was back in 2019. Adam Silver on that incident, because I'm wondering why people, the NBA media, don't ask Adam Silver about this incident, because I'll tell you about another incident that's been in the news about China also as a potential security threat for players in the NBA that do business over there. So listen up. This is Adam Silver in 2019. We're trying to get a quote from him now. If I was a reporter, I would ask him this about it now. This is Adam Silver, NBA commissioner.
And I think there's been some confusion around this. We are not apologizing for Daryl exercising his freedom of expression. I regret, again, having communicated directly with many friends in China, that so many people are upset, including millions and millions of our fans. I mean, at the end of the day, we come with basketball as an opportunity to sell dreams, sell hopes.
Just say sell.
Increasingly focus on physical fitness, mental health, and to the extent that we are causing disruption in people's lives and that we are causing disharmony, that's something I regret. And so I think, as I said earlier, I don't think it's inconsistent to both be apologetic that that was the outcome of that speech, but at the same time support Daryl's right, to his freedom of expression and Joe Tsai's right to respond. So I think I would just say I believe that's more of a human reaction. As someone who's been coming to China regularly since 2004, I've attended virtually every preseason game that we've ever conducted in any city in China. And as I said, we have great business partners, many friends, including Yao Ming. And to the extent that we are upsetting people, I regret that. But as I said, I think one of the things that comes with freedom of expression often is very difficult conversations. And that in any society, that comes with that sort of engagement. I think nobody ever suggested that when somebody exercises those rights, that it means that people are going to say, aha, now I agree, or that everything.
Well, hey, I wish she'd kind of play both sides like that when you get, part of a police video and everything. But no, he ain't going to do that. But when he says freedom of expression, they said, what? No, you don't get freedom of jack squat here, but money. You don't say what you really mean. You say what we tell you to say. Okay. Now, I say that because they, like he just said, did you hear what he said? That was in 2019. They do preseason games over there. Klay Thompson has a shoe endorsement. He has endorsement with the Chinese company. These players, current players, previous players. He mentioned Joe Tsai. I think he's a Chinese native. There's $10 billion in investment from owners over there. All right. So you put together all of this, and nobody has asked him about this spy plane that's went across our country. Do you sense that? Have you warned the players about going over there and a potential Cold War situation? We have a Air Force general. We have an Air Force general that is warning of a possible war with China in 2025. That came out earlier this time last week. Later on, there's the spy balloon in Montana on Thursday, Friday, whichever day you want to believe. Okay. All that points toward major conflict with China, and not one media outlet has asked Adam Silver about that. Now, do you want another Brittany Griner? Think about this, folks. We are 1 year away. 1 year ago, this month, Brittany Griner was held against her will, nabbed at the airport. They had the vape cartridges. She probably been doing that for years. And that woman was in prison for 9 months, and she's lucky to be out. Now, China's a much bigger animal than Russia. Russia's a pimple to these people. And, for safety, personal safety of these players, I would at least ask them, have you spoke to players, agents, and coaches about the seriousness of doing business over there right now? This is NBC News. This ain't my opinion. This ain't some wild This is a NBC News saying that the Air Force general is saying he hopes this is not, but he says we got to prepare for potential 2025 war with these people, with this country. ESPN analysts, this is from May of last year. ESPN analysts, NBA owners mum over have more than $10 billion invested there. And I've listened to analysts about this. This author, Gordon Chang, he is an expert in their politics. He's also a Chinese himself, but he's an American, and he's saying, "Hey, man, we got to cut off all ties to these people." And I'm thinking, yeah, well, this is a sports show. You're not going to get this talk anywhere else. Yeah, Fox and ESPN, they're not going to cut their nose off despite their face. But what if we have a Brittany Griner times 20 and you got 25, 30 players over there held prisoner over there in China because they're taking this stuff lightly? And let's go ahead and say it. We're in a potential Cold War with these people. What value is the money if you can't spend it? That's what I'm trying to say. You can't keep poo-pooing something like this. It's like the big elephant in the room. It's the I just mentioned the comment about the Hong Kong thing by a former general manager, who, by the way, he's a general manager of the 76ers, Daryl Morey. Okay. You've got the people held against their will, the Muslim people held against their will in the concentration camps over there. The COVID stuff is still unresolved. You have the spy balloon. You have the general and the Air Force warning that the potential war with China in 2025. What other warnings, NBA, do you need? How much is that 15% worth? Is it worth the security of your players and coaches and staff? And Pickle says they're buying up properties in China, in Montana, and not to get too far off on that, but I have a real estate background, and there's a thing called eminent domain. In other words, if you have a house in the middle of an area and the state needs to build a highway there, they're going to give you market value. They're going to take your house, tear it down, and build the highway there. Whoever will go to China, I said, listen, man, we're not going to rob you. Here's your money back, but we're taking the land back in Montana. So I think it's a big deal. And my problem is with the sports media not asking Adam Silver. You put out a statement about this. You have major ties to these people, to this country. And it's a security to the players to not to poo-poo something like this. And, of course, they're all, like Carlos said the other day, everybody's worried about their own specific self-interest in the NBA. By the way, the NBA is in the middle of another CBA. People are worried about their own self-interest rather than the greater good of the game. And I just tell her, hey, look, man, just because they like you today don't mean they're going to like you tomorrow. They meaning the people may love you, but that doesn't make what the government's going to do. I'm telling these players, and they go over every summer. Players go there every summer. I could not find any preseason games next year, any expedition games next year scheduled to be over there. But that's something that I would definitely, these are questions that need to be asked to Adam Silver as a reporter. And our media will not do their job and ask these crucial questions because the NBA is very tied, very thick $10 billion investments, a lot of ties there, But a lot of these players, they just think about one thing, money, and a lot of former players, guys. One guy, a former second overall pick, I had his name written down, but I don't think I still have it. But he just got a contract here recently, But now this Air Force general predicts a war with China in 2025, tells NBC News. Officers to prep by firing a clip at a target and aim for the head. He says, I hope I'm wrong, but my gut tells me we'll fight in 2025. Central General Mike Menahan in a memo sent to the officers he commands and obtained by NBC News. And you can't ask Adam Silver that. You can't ask him that. I mean, it's pretty serious, man. You know. And Pickles says USA is a national security. Yeah, it's a Patriot Act, national security, and it's a national security issue for the players. A lot of these guys, they're caught up in their own lives. You just don't want another Brittany Griner thing, which could be a lot worse because these tensions seem to get worse by the day, and it's something I just wouldn't poo-poo. That's all. You know, and you could tell Adam Silver was walking on eggshells. That was back in 2019. I wonder what I'm just wondering what he's going through now. Okay, switching back gears on a lighter note. Had to get that out of the way. Nobody else is going to talk about it. All right, now in the NFL, let's see. Okay, Dallas Cowboy. Man, you know, I'll say this. This is probably going to be the last year of Mike McCarthy. McCarthy is going to take back play calling. I know, switch all the way to very deep, the Dallas Cowboy offensive coordinator. But Brian Schottenheimer was hired over the weekend to coach Dallas as offensive coordinator. Now, that's the son of Marty Schottenheimer. And also what I read was that Mike McCarthy is going to go back to starting calling plays for Dallas, okay? Now, the problem I have, first of all, when he started, air quote, calling plays, they made a lot of mistakes, Dallas. Time management, not getting the kick out. They make mistakes anyways. But now to the fact that supposedly, now I read today that Moore was fired. Okay, well, he got a better job. He's working with Justin Herbert, with Keelan Moore's now with Justin Herbert at the Chargers. But they brought in Brian Schottenheimer. Well, Schottenheimer is a guy who's been fired multiple times. The offense was so good that Russell Wilson wanted to get out of town in Seattle. And then, of course, he went over there with Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer. That was a disaster. Maybe that wasn't his fault. But he's a very, I'm reading some of these. Well, he worked with, he went to the AFC Championship game with Mark Sanchez and the 2009, 2000. I was like, yeah, well, what happened after that? That team was already built to win. Rex Ryan just put a defense on those 2009, 2010 Jets team. They didn't have the greatest offense in the world, And then it says, following the Jets, he ran the Rams offense in 12 and 14. Well, you know what happened there? That was when Jeff Fisher got fired. So this guy is a name. Brian Schottenheimer is a name. All right. Now, everything I read now, of course, the real issue is going to be Dak Prescott's $49 million cap hit. And you say, well, why are you talking about extending him? Well, because if you extend that cap, if you extend a player, that cap goes down. They need to get that in half, folks. The cap for next year, this year coming up, we've only got the Super Bowl up. The cap for this year is going to be in September, $224 million. He's going to be making 45. He's a $49 million cap hit. Yeah, that's a lot of money. I know that, and for those of you, that's 20% over 12.6. You don't win Super Bowls. Now, Patrick Mahomes, he's bucking that trend right now because he's about a $35 million. How many Patrick Mahomes you got? One, maybe two? How many Patrick Mahomes you got? So if you extend him and get it in half, and this is what Jerry Jones talking about, this reports, air quote. But my thing is, maybe go out and get another receiver. Maybe you simply go out and get another running back or keep Tony Pollard, which I would draft the back. You can't give away Zeke. I'd draft the back and maybe do something with Zeke, do whatever you can, trade him. Probably can't do anything. Probably stuck with him, And this guy's maybe there to help the running game. I just don't see it ending well. I don't see him getting all this done. Maybe they do, because they do draft well at times. The Dallas Cowboys do draft well. They hit on an offensive lineman this last year. The year before that, they hit on the great Michael Parsons, and guys like Dalton Schultz. I mean, they draft pretty good. The problem is Jerry interferes. He doesn't want to get that great coach there. It's just a tick off of the coaching, and that team is just a tick off every time. He's overpaid Dak. He's overpaid Zeke, and now they're trying to make excuses of the issues. But those are the big issues. If Dak was making half, and I would have traded Zeke. As soon as Zeke Elliott asked for an extension with 2 years left on his rookie deal, I would have traded him, Pickles, for a haul. I would have traded him. But they didn't do that. That was all Jerry Jones. He loves his stars. He has his favorites. He's going to pay. Most of the time he overpays. And now you're having a team that is a borderline playoff team. And they're never going to achieve the full success that he wants them to. They're never going to get back to that Jimmy Johnson. And it's unfortunate. I know a lot of people like the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm simply not in love with Brian Schottenheimer, Pickles. Well, extend a guy and lead the league in interceptions. Yeah. They want to extend him, though, Pickles, to get his number down. I think they're stuck with him. I don't think they can trade him. They can't cut him because the dead cap is too high. Only thing they can do is extend him. Of course, Jerry's 81. He's saying, let's just go all in. But then he talks out of both sides of his mouth, if you ask me. But either way, it's just not I don't like it. It's not a good deal. Speaking of coordinators, folks, Brian Flores. I don't know what Flores was thinking. I think Brian Flores, Pickles, I think he simply wanted to get out of Pittsburgh. Defensive coordinator. I think he was a coordinator 1 year with New England. Did a good job. The drama side, winning record 2 years in a row. Beat Belichick 2 years in a row. Swept Belichick, I want to say, Brian Flores with Miami. Now he takes over at Minnesota as their defensive coordinator. Now they need him. But now we're going back to Kirk Cousins. Now Cousins is his situation is not as bad. What's going on, Brian? Yeah. Brian says that's a strange hiring Schottenheimer. Brian, you go way back, man. His dad wasn't that good. His dad was good in the regular season. Very bad offense in the postseason. He was decent in the regular season. His team was nothing in the quarterbacks all moved on. They went downhill the longer they stayed with him. I digress. So Brian Flores was hired as the defensive coordinator for Minnesota. He wanted to get away from Pittsburgh. I think maybe he had a second interview with Arizona as the head coach. I don't think he wanted that. So now he's a DC. Now, if you're a Viking fan, you've got to be ecstatic about that. But my issue is that, man, this team needs pass rushers. They need cornerbacks, linebackers. They're 31st in total defense. Daniel Jones looked like a $45 million quarterback against them, to hear people say it. And Kirk Cousins cap hits $36 million next year. Now, again, it's not as bad as Dak Prescott, but he's still Kirk Cousins, So if I was Brian Flores, I wouldn't have done that. But I guess he wanted – they're probably offering him a lot of money up in Minnesota. He looks better as a coordinator rather than a linebacker coach at Pittsburgh. But my thing is maybe Tomlin steps down. He could step in for Tomlin. But Tomlin must have really liked what Kenny Pickett was doing, and Kenny Pickett did finish strong. The defense did look better. They did run the ball better. They need to run the ball a little bit better in Pittsburgh, but I think he's looking at all that and he's thinking, maybe I think Tomlin maybe got a second life here, and he's going to stay with Pittsburgh. And I guess he just didn't like that Arizona deal. I guess apparently all the reports are nobody wants that Arizona job. So apparently Kyler Murray is hard to deal with. One executive said, quote, nobody wants to deal with Kyler Murray's bleep. And I've had Jim Jeffcoat on here, who used to be an assistant coach there and recruited, knows a lot about, he was involved in the recruitment of Jalen Hurts, and he talked to some people about the recruitment and around Kyler Murray, who came out of Texas, right? Says Murray's a me guy. That's going all the way back to his college years. I think Murray's a very talented player. But from what I hear, going through Jim Jeffcoat, also looking at Larry Fitzgerald's dad, Patrick Peterson, the cornerback from Minnesota, right? That he's a me guy and he's difficult to work with. He might not even be back until middle of the season. So that Arizona job, maybe now Flores is out because he's going to take the Minnesota job as a DC. Lou Aromo, the great defensive coordinator for Cincinnati, which he may just be a coordinator, he's got a second interview with Arizona too. Now, there is thought that maybe this team tanks out next year and go ahead and just put Murray on the shelf another year and then maybe cut him or trade him in 24 and draft one of these big quarterbacks coming up next year, Drake May out of North Carolina, or the quarterback out of USC that's played under Lincoln Riley. So a lot of this stuff is going into Flores taking that defensive coordinator job. As far as Minnesota, they'll probably have to, and this is why I know this sounds crazy, guys, but they're talking about extending him being Kirk Cousins, to get that $36 million a year number down. They want to cut that in half to have some flexibility to build this defense, or lack thereof it. So I think that's all what went into Flores taking that job. He didn't want to work with Kyler Murray. He walked away from a head coaching job. He didn't want to work with Kyler Murray. He didn't want to be a two-time fired head coach. So, and he's thinking that the extension of Kirk Cousins, get their caps number down. By the way, they're $21 million over. Get his cap number down. And probably this team will also work in extending Justin Jefferson, who is eligible for a contract next season. Now, me guys, if I'm in that $20 million over in cap space, if I'm Minnesota and I got an asset like Justin Jefferson, you can get 3 or 4 picks for him. You might get 2 first-round picks for him, Brian. That's what they did with Stephon. They can get more for him than they got Stephon Diggs. Now, I think that you probably think, well, that's crazy because he's with it. Well, you either do that or you find another quarterback in the draft and maybe get and the guy they got out of Texas A&M a few years ago was supposed to take over for Cousins, but apparently he was a bust. I think his name was I can't remember his name. He was out of Texas A&M. They got him in like the 3rd round, and the guy turned out not to be as good as they thought, and they end up they're stuck with Kirk Cousins. Brian says Murray should have went and played baseball. Yeah, so he held that over them, Brian, and the former general manager, remember the general manager stepped down for health reasons, in air quotes, because I'm not really sure. And then Kingsbury's fired. They essentially signed him out of fear, kept Kingsbury there to coach him and the general manager, and the whole thing fell apart. And what really freaked me out about the whole thing, really just a big question mark, they extended him a year early. This is what happens when you negotiate out of fear instead of confidence. They extended him a year early. They could have waited another year on Murray. We knew he was woefully undersized. But when you have to put in a study contingent and let it be known public, there's a problem for a guy that's like 5'10", Brian. Remember, they put that contingent in there. So there's a red flag with Murray right there. You know, there's a red flag right there with Kyler Murray. So I don't know who they're going to get. I'd like to see Lou Anarumo, the coordinator from Cincinnati, get it. Maybe he'll just, and they'll probably go out and draft another quarterback. They may go after Jimmy Garoppolo because this guy may not come back till midseason. Go out, get Jimmy Garoppolo, run a pro-style offense, do everything on defense, play situational football, and then when he comes back midseason, see what you can do with him. I mean, that's another option. But I do think the owner's realizing he really effed up. Brian says teams that have to get smarter with these contracts with average players and killing them long term. Yeah, I agree, man. They really have to get smarter. And I've said this about Daniel Jones. I've said this about guys like Ryan Tannehill with Tennessee. I don't know why these general managers or a general manager, Brian, will simply try to get out the chart here and say, okay, average quarterback Y. Okay, listen, average quarterback Y. If we pay you this $35 to $40 million, over 12.6% in every Super Bowl winner, none of those actually win. None of those quarterbacks are paid that amount of money. Do you want to keep your left tackle, your leading receiver? You want to have your best defense out there, your best cornerback, your best pass rusher out there, your defensive tackle out there, right? Do you want to be playing deep into the season? We will pay you, Daniel Jones, $18 million base, and we incentivize you for snaps played, games won. You get a certain incentive if you win 9 games. You get another incentive for 10. You get a playoff incentive. You get a playoff win incentive. You can make over $40 million in it, a $20 million extra in incentives, which usually don't count against the cap. But we keep your boys around. We keep that defense tight. We keep a top-notch running back. We can't pay you this big amount of money because it's air quote market value. Well, when your market value, the team falls off. Okay. So the whole thing, and you know, Jason McIntyre, and I've mentioned this to you all before. Jason McIntyre with Fox Sports, he says, you know, if most of these quarterbacks are just average and you don't have a Patrick Mahomes level, a Josh Allen level, why don't you just cycle the quarterbacks out? Okay. If you keep a quarterback for 4 years and then you cycle them out for another quarterback and just keep the team great around him. If you have a good enough general manager and program and program, whatever you want to call it, franchise, Baltimore, okay, I like the quarterback out of Florida can take over tomorrow for Lamar Jackson. I can't think of his name, but he's coming up in mock drafts. He's coming up as a top 10 pick in mock. Instead of paying Lamar $40 million when he's been hurt for multiple years, 2 years in a row he's missed 5 games. Year before that he missed his playoff game. He missed part of the playoff because of injury because he's running too much. You get that guy from Florida, the quarterback from Florida, and you start off paying him on a rookie contract. You keep Roquan Smith. You keep guys like Ronnie Stanley. You keep that defense in line. You keep those cornerbacks, that excellent defense. Not a good, it's an excellent defense. And you stay competitive with Cincinnati, who, by the way, Higgins is coming up for extension. I wonder what they're going to do there. Keep one of those guys up. And of course, Deshaun Watson is going to be really good, but he's a big cap hit too for Cleveland next year. So it's a lot. This is the big, you know, chain reaction. The Colts ain't got a coach, and Arizona don't have a coach. So, anyways, and he says, I'm not taking anything away from baseball, but I just think expectations too much for Murray. Yeah, he is. Pickle says he's simply immature. Well, he plays video games. Supposedly, he wanted Hollywood Brown there because they play games together, And, yeah, it makes sense. The NBA does around their stars. Yeah. And it's just the NFL. There's got to be a better way to do it. So one more story in the NFL. AJ Green. Listen, where you follow, where you get picked matters. Okay, if you guys remember, let's go back about 15 years. Okay, AJ Green, 5-star player, Georgia. Man, he set the world on fire. Another 5-star player, Alabama, played. His name was Julio Jones. Man, they played great together. They played against each other. Of course, Julio went to the better team. He goes under Nick Saban. AJ Green, Georgia, goes under Mark Richt. Then AJ Green goes to Andy Dalton, plays his best years with Andy Dalton, has a great career, but not a Hall of Fame career. And Julio goes to not great, but much better than Andy Dalton, than Matt Ryan. Julio's probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame. And AJ Green, who's going to retire, by the way, just announced his retirement. He's probably going to come up short. It's just think about it. If he came out just 8 years later and went to Kirby Smart, he gets a national championship, and then he goes to Cincinnati under Joe Burrow, which looks like he could have a Hall of Fame career. Timing is everything. And it's unfortunate that all his good years went off with Andy Dalton. Now, you say, how could he prevent it? Well, what he could have done was he could have played his contract out, and they could have franchised him, but he could have stuck his good years out there, make the franchise money, and go to anywhere he wants to at free agency. I think they can only franchise you twice. I don't think they would have done it the second time because I know that guy up there, Brown, he's very cheap. The general manager and the owner, I think his name's like Mike Brown, like 80-something years old. Now, he's come out of all that because he's got the great Joe Burrow now. But then he was very cheap, And I don't know what it is. They always seem to have a good receiver up there. They had Chad Johnson, Hushmanzada, then they get AJ Green. But Green has Hall of Fame talent, but he didn't have a Hall of Fame guy throwing to him. Couldn't you imagine Justin Jefferson not extending with Kirk Cousins and saying, I don't know, I think I may go to Buffalo, or I think I may go play for Cincinnati or somebody. I may go play for not break the bank, but I think I may want to go to Kansas City and play with this Patrick Mahomes guy. Couldn't you imagine Justin Jefferson, one of those talented quarterbacks? Who you throwing to you, it's going to be a big deal because you're going to be playing in bigger games, more meaningful catches, and it's really, I'm sure he's got plenty of money, but I'm sure he would like to have a ring on his hand, and he would like to be in Canton. I think the talent was Hall of Fame for AJ Green. Yeah, and he did get hurt. Yeah, he got hurt. But most of that with Brian was because he played with Andy Dalton. I mean, Andy Dalton's a solid dude, but he's not. He wasn't consistent enough. And in the big game, Andy Dalton, he couldn't win primetime games for a while. Him and Kirk Cousins had a problem in primetime. They're scared of the lights. You get guys like Tom Brady; they play better than the lights. But not Andy Dalton. And not Kirk Cousins. Now the Kirk Cousins got better. And he says, like the 2 years Andy Dalton, really good, just didn't have the end. Marvin Lewis tenure, yeah. That they were a pretty good defensive team under Marvin Lewis. Little dirty at times. little undisciplined. I think it was probably the general manager owner who pushed for some of those more troubled players like Pat-Man Jones and that linebacker. You guys know who I'm talking about. The linebacker that always got called for the cheap shots. If one of y'all can think of his name, that would be awesome. But they just come up a little short. They just didn't. Andy could not compete with Ben Roethlisberger. And Baltimore always had just a slightly better defense. But they would take it was a time there they would take troubled players. They had guys like Chris Henry, who got killed for falling off a truck chasing after a woman. Adam Pat-Man Jones been arrested 1,000 times. They had that crazy linebacker I just mentioned. Got in trouble for some cheap shots on Antonio Brown. It was a thing for them then. And Marvin Lewis, drove Marvin Lewis crazy. But, T.J. Usman said he ran a tight ship. I think that owner brought in players he didn't want to deal with because they were talented and they were cheap. Yeah. Yep. Vontaze Burfict, Pickles. Vontaze Burfict, Adam Jones, Chris Henry, who's dead. Not to mention Chad Johnson, Diva out. I did like Hushmanzada, but, man, them guys were getting in trouble every other week. Yeah, they got in all kinds. Vontaze Burfict was one of the most penalized players in the league at one time. Suspended, went to another team, suspended, Pickle says, Chris Henry, you guys remember him? Very tall guy, really fast. But he was kind of nuts, though. He jumped off a moving truck, and he fell off and died. He was chasing after his girlfriend. But they said he was wild like that all the time, So and Adam Jones, he fit in good there. He just fit in like one of those. So it made that guy, Carson Palmer's like, man, this is so over the top. I can't stay here anymore. I'll retire. And then, of course, they finally moved him to the Raiders. And the Raiders moved off the guy, and he got a second life with Arizona once an NFC championship game. But anyways, hey guys, Brian, check out this show tomorrow. I got a special guest on tomorrow. This guy, Jeffrey Deskovic, said he got wrongfully accused of murder, rape, and he sues the state of New York, wins a big lawsuit. He says they reached out to me because he says that Sports Talk Radio helped him get through those times. And I want to ask him about that. Like I said, he's Jeffrey Deskovic. Deskovic is, like I said, he's Amazon Prime. He's got a documentary on him, Corey. Make sure to check out tomorrow's show, guys. Y'all are really going to like this. And it may be a total disaster. He may cut me off and I can't interview him. But if he does, I'll cut him off and we'll just spitball the rest of the hour. No, I'm kidding. I think he's going to be good. He's had some really good interviews prior to coming on Sports Scope. I'm going to ask him about the Super Bowl. And, this guy's had documentaries made about him. He's got a huge settlement. He's got a foundation, found me off Facebook, and I'm really honored that he reached out to me. He's did bigger shows than mine, I'll tell you that, by judging this guy. So I will see you all tomorrow. Make sure to tune in. It's going to be a really good show, everybody. Same time, same place here on Sports Scope. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it. Good to see you, Brian, Pickles, Carlos. Man, y'all coming in tonight. I'll see you tomorrow.